In just 47 seconds, $200 billion disappeared into a classified EU-China infrastructure fund. Ursula von der Leyen didn't wait for parliamentary approval. She signed the memorandum with Beijing's representative behind closed doors in Luxembourg. Cameras captured her nervous glance toward the exit. The European Commission went into immediate damage control mode. What did von der Leyen conceal from European taxpayers that could reshape the global balance of power? The leak came from an unexpected source. At exactly 3:47 p.m. Brussels time, a whistleblower inside the European External Action Service released 400 pages of classified documents to investigative journalists across 3 countries. The papers revealed a shadow financial network connecting EU green transition funds directly to Chinese state-owned enterprises through a maze of Luxembourg shell companies. Von der Leyen had orchestrated what intelligence analysts are calling the largest undisclosed financial transaction in European Union history. The secret agreement, codenamed Silk Bridge Initiative, wasn't just about money. It was about surrendering European technological sovereignty to Beijing in exchange for short-term political survival. The timeline reveals a carefully planned deception. On September 12th, von der Leyen met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in a private suite at the Ritz-Carlton in Vienna. No official record exists of this meeting. Hotel security footage, later obtained by German intelligence, shows Wang Yi entering with a black diplomatic briefcase and leaving empty-handed 2 hours later. 48 hours after Vienna, von der Leyen convened an emergency session of the College of Commissioners. According to leaked audio recordings, she presented the Chinese proposal as an urgent climate investment opportunity that required immediate approval under Article 122 emergency provisions. Commission members were given just 6 hours to review a 847-page technical document written entirely in Mandarin with selective English translations. The financial structure was deliberately complex to avoid detection. The $200 billion wasn't transferred as a lump sum. Instead, it was dispersed through 47 different EU budget lines over 18 months, making it virtually invisible to parliamentary oversight. Each transaction was labeled as Green Recovery Infrastructure Investment or Digital Transition Support, bureaucratic language designed to blend into routine EU expenditure. But the money never reached European companies. Forensic accounting by the European Court of Auditors, conducted in secret after the whistleblower revelations, traced the funds to 3 primary destinations: Beidou Advanced Technologies, a Chinese satellite surveillance company, Silk Road Energy Consortium, controlled by the Chinese military, and most shockingly, personal accounts linked to von der Leyen's consulting firm, established just months before the China negotiations began. The surveillance component represents the most dangerous aspect of the secret deal. In exchange for the $200 billion, von der Leyen granted Chinese companies unprecedented access to European telecommunications infrastructure. The agreement explicitly permits Beijing to install monitoring equipment in 5G networks across 12 EU member states, effectively handing China the ability to intercept communications of 200 million European citizens. Intelligence sources confirm that the CIA and German BND became aware of the deal in October, triggering panic across NATO headquarters. A classified briefing document, obtained through Freedom of Information requests, reveals that American officials considered von der Leyen a compromised asset and began excluding her from sensitive intelligence sharing. The political fallout began immediately after the leak. Within 6 hours of publication, the German Bundestag called for von der Leyen's immediate resignation. French President Emmanuel Macron, caught completely off guard by the revelations, reportedly threw his phone across his Élysée Palace office during an emergency call with Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Von der Leyen's response has been a masterclass in deflection and denial. During a hastily arranged press conference at the Berlaymont building, she claimed the documents were Russian disinformation designed to destabilize European unity. When pressed by Reuters correspondent about specific transaction dates, her voice cracked visibly. But her body language told a different story. She avoided direct eye contact with journalists, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the podium, and she fled the room after just 8 minutes without taking questions. Security footage later revealed her stumbling in the corridor, requiring assistance from her chief of staff. The markets reacted with brutal efficiency. The euro dropped 3.2% against the dollar within hours of the leak, wiping out $180 billion in market capitalization across European exchanges. Emergency trading halts were triggered on Frankfurt's DAX as panic selling accelerated. European defense stocks collapsed as investors realized that critical military technologies had been compromised. German automotive giants BMW and Volkswagen saw their shares plummet as the implications of Chinese surveillance access became clear. But the financial scandal is only the surface. The leaked documents reveal that von der Leyen promised Beijing something far more valuable than money: veto power over EU foreign policy decisions regarding Taiwan. A secret annex to the Silk Bridge Agreement states that the European Commission will refrain from official diplomatic recognition of Taiwan and will discourage member state engagement with Taipei. This represents a complete betrayal of European values and strategic interests. For decades, the EU maintained a carefully balanced position on Taiwan, supporting democratic principles while avoiding direct confrontation with Beijing. Von der Leyen's secret concession effectively makes the European Union complicit in Chinese aggression against the island democracy. The timing of the deal correlates suspiciously with von der Leyen's personal financial troubles. Swiss banking records, leaked simultaneously with the EU documents, show that von der Leyen faced significant debts from failed investments in renewable energy startups. Her consulting firm, established through a network of Liechtenstein shell companies, received its first major payment, $12 million, just 2 weeks after the Vienna meeting with Wang Yi. European Parliament members across party lines are demanding immediate impeachment proceedings. The European People's Party, von der Leyen's own political family, issued an unprecedented statement calling her actions incompatible with European values and democratic oversight. Socialist MEP leader Iratxe Garcia described the China deal as the greatest betrayal in EU history. The legal implications are staggering. EU prosecutors are examining potential charges including breach of fiduciary duty, conspiracy to defraud, and treason. Belgian authorities have already issued preservation orders for von der Leyen's private communications and financial records. If convicted, von der Leyen faces up to 20 years in prison under German law, as the crimes occurred partially on German territory during the preliminary negotiations. Intelligence agencies across Europe are conducting damage assessment operations to determine how much classified information may have been compromised through the Chinese surveillance access. Early reports suggest that Beijing gained access to NATO communication protocols, European Central Bank financial data, and personal information of millions of European citizens. The broader geopolitical implications are catastrophic. China has effectively purchased influence over European Union decision-making at a fraction of the cost of military conquest. Beijing now possesses leverage over European energy policy, trade agreements, and diplomatic positions. The EU, once positioned as a counterweight to both American and Chinese power, has become a junior partner in China's global ambitions. Von der Leyen's attempt to cover up the deal has created a constitutional crisis. She invoked emergency powers to classify all documents related to the China agreement for 50 years, effectively putting them beyond democratic scrutiny. This unprecedented use of executive authority has prompted calls for fundamental reform of EU governance structures. The scandal has shattered European unity at the worst possible moment. With war raging in Ukraine and economic pressures mounting across the continent, European leaders needed to present a united front. Instead, they are consumed by internal investigations and recriminations. Putin's regime has already begun exploiting the chaos, launching propaganda campaigns highlighting European weakness and corruption. American officials are privately expressing fury over the betrayal. CIA Director William Burns reportedly told European intelligence chiefs that the United States would reconsider all aspects of transatlantic cooperation if von der Leyen remains in office. The special relationship between Washington and Brussels, built over decades of shared democratic values, has been poisoned by von der Leyen's secret dealings with Beijing. The technological implications may be the most damaging long-term consequence. By granting Chinese companies access to European 5G infrastructure, von der Leyen has compromised the digital sovereignty of an entire continent. Chinese intelligence services now have the capability to monitor European communications, steal industrial secrets, and potentially sabotage critical infrastructure during a crisis. As investigations continue, more damaging details emerge daily. Swiss prosecutors have frozen accounts linked to von der Leyen's consulting network. German intelligence is examining whether other EU officials were involved in the Chinese influence operation. The European Court of Justice is considering whether the entire Silk Bridge Agreement violates fundamental EU treaties. The scandal represents more than political corruption. It's a fundamental betrayal of European democracy and sovereignty. Von der Leyen transformed the European Commission from an institution serving 500 million Europeans into a vehicle for Chinese strategic interests. The $200 billion was never just an investment. It was the price of European independence. The coming weeks will determine whether European democracy can survive this unprecedented assault from within. Von der Leyen's secret deal with China has exposed the vulnerabilities of European institutions and the dangerous concentration of power in unelected hands. The question now is whether Europeans will demand accountability or allow their continent to drift further into Beijing's orbit. The answer will shape not just European politics, but the global balance between democracy and authoritarianism for generations to come.